Guerrilla filmmaking is back, baby. Brought to you by the Daily Wire. Am I racist? If you answered yes or no, you are indeed racist. Now, if you're anything like me, you've often wondered if Borat was a conservative right-wing Catholic curious about his privilege. What would that look like? Well, Matt Walsh is your answer. With his latest film, Am I Racist? The film was a sequel to a highly controversial documentary, What is a Woman? And just like its predecessor, it's got its fair share of ruckus. From theaters pulling it, to protests, to with some of the cast members straight up calling it Nazi propaganda in an attempt to distance themselves from the film. So naturally, I had to go see what's up. The plot follows Matt as he goes on his journey to confront the titular question, am I racist? This leads him to a support group focused on confronting white guilt. After quickly being found out to be a conservative, the group demands that he leaves. They even call the police on him. 'Cause, city-burning conservatives are still a thing. After the altercation, it dawns on Matt that if he is going to go on this adventure, he needs to disguise himself. So he dresses like a part-time tool and gets certified as a DEI expert that he received off an online course that he paid $30 for. Must have been one of those Team U classes. Matt then confronts other white people on their whiteness in hopes of evoking a self-realization of privilege privy to them and their fellow white constituents. Among other things, he attempts to convince people to sign a petition to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument, as well as paint it black and make it 30% taller.
Oh, hell yeah!
As a part of his journey, he interviews other DEI experts. After feeling confident in himself and all that he has learned, Matt starts his own workshop where he gets paying white people to confront their inherited evil. He gives an example of what this looks like by having his old wheelchair-stricken uncle wheeled out, and then he yells at him for an offensive joke that he told at a Thanksgiving dinner 20-some years ago. This just happens to be my favorite part. People in wheelchairs have been getting away with too much these days.
You remember that fool in the wheelchair?
Good on you, Matt. The next step in decentralizing their whiteness is, of course, self-flagellation. Or as I like to call it, the cure for everything. At which point, many people walk out. Racist, clearly. Afterwards, Matt realizes that encouraging self-deprecation and humiliation as a means of white guilt confrontation and amends is wrong. He dismisses the class, and publicly states that his workshop is a scam. The film ends with him trying to make things right with his Uncle Frank over a cup of coffee in a diner. And that's it. That's the film. Now I gotta say, when I left the movie theater, I was actually kind of pissed off, because one thing it unintentionally did was reveal the incompetence of big Hollywood studios nowadays to come out with a good, decent comedy film. Compare this film, which was made on a $3 million budget, to all the other comedies made this year. This blows them out of the water. This film is absolutely brilliant. I couldn't stop laughing. At one point I laughed so hard, I got vertigo, dizzy, and I really thought I was gonna faint. I haven't laughed at the cinema like this in years, and this is what surprised me the most considering its predecessor. What is a Woman had funny parts, yes, but it was kind of overshadowed by the darkness of the transitioning process. Instead, what we got is an inside look into the industry of anti-racism. It leaves you wondering if there are parties interested in fostering division between people for the sake of monetary exploit. Though racism does exist in the West, it's more of an individual problem than a systemic problem in 2024, as opposed to what a lot of exploitive parties would have you believe. One of the genius aspects of this film was that it showed how much money they paid for the DEI experts and other people to talk to them about their experiences. This was anywhere between $1,500 to $50,000. This, of course, brings up the uncomfortable conversation of some people exploiting hatred, racism, and shame as a means for fame, status, and financial gain. This, of course, sounds a lot like my ex-wife, Miranda!
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
To exploit the pain and suffering, and in this case, the shame of white guilt, becomes a tough subject, easily triggering. Considering all this is what makes this film an absolute work of genius. Discussing these difficult subjects with a respectable sense of humor perhaps is the best way to do it. And Matt Walsh is the most ideal person to do it. His deadpan persona mixed with his clever wit and absolute void of charisma plays off so well off these people. This is perhaps best displayed with his interview with Robin DiAngelo, the author of White Fragility. Robin, who is framed up to be a sort of antagonist of the film, is done incredibly well. At no point did I find myself hating her, despite disagreeing with her on nearly everything she was saying. In fact, she comes across as someone quite nice, just someone who you might not agree with. And it's in this why Matt Walsh works so well. For the most part, he just lets them talk. His questions don't come across as particularly malicious or aggressive, but rather inquiring. So in conclusion, all things considered, the film is good. It's a great time, and it's the best comedy thing I've seen since Shane Gillis' Beautiful Dogs comedy special. Yeah.
Decolonize yourself. Do your own white supremacy dismantling. And then you can start to bring in other people.
Can I just say one last thing? Can I just propose a toast? Just raise a glass if you're racist. And that's the thing.
Cheers. Oh, I'm not racist. Let me
To racist. Well, all the rest of it. To racist.
Am I Racist? Rated PG-13. Buy tickets now.
If you thought this was good or absolute shit, be sure to check out my upcoming review of Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose.